We are now about a month away from this year's NBA trade deadline, and there's a player available that literally every playoff team should be making calls for. I'm of course referring to Cam Johnson, who's broken out this year for the Nets and looks like one of the league's most efficient offensive players. Cam's value starts with the fact that he's one of the best three-point shooters on the planet. You could just look at his season averages of 43.6% from three on 7.5 attempts a game and reasonably come to that conclusion, but the deeper you go into the numbers, the more impressive this part of his game looks. If we use the last 3 seasons to get a bigger sample size, he's attempted nearly 700 catch and shoot threes, and he's hit a scorching 42.5% of them. That jumps up to over 44% on wide open opportunities, so he's the type of guy that defenses absolutely can't leave alone or bring help from. And to make matters even more difficult, he's constantly hunting for those little openings with his movement, which means that defenders have to be aware at all times. Take this play for example. He starts out spotted up on the wing, and as soon as Cam Thomas starts a drive, he immediately relocates into open space at the top of the key. And that puts this defender in an impossible spot where he has to choose between helping on the ball or staying home. He makes his choice, and the ball finds Johnson for a wide open triple. It feels like he never stops moving. This time he starts under the basket and notices a potential opening in the corner, so he sprints baseline. Zaire Williams sets a great down screen, and Cam's got a warm-up jumper. Even when he starts with the ball in his hands, instead of forcing tough shots or trying to break his man down one-on-one, he'll just get rid of it and immediately relocate to the perimeter. Here you're going to see Claxton come with a beautifully timed flare screen, and the Cavs do a great job of switching to get Allen out on the ball, but it doesn't even matter. Now it feels like a good time to mention that while he is great at relocating and filling out space to find open threes, he doesn't actually need that much space to comfortably get these shots off. That's in large part thanks to his height. He's one of the taller wing shooters in the NBA at 6'8", which allows him to shoot over the top of contests. As a result, defenders are often forced to do one of two things. They could choose to stay glued to him out in space, but that puts them in a much more vulnerable position if he decides to cut or run off a back screen. The other thing they can do is sit back with a little cushion of space to play the potential cut, then close out hard once the pass is made. Cam's pretty dangerous as an attacker off the catch though. Not only can he take a dribble or two and still comfortably get a shot off, he's a decisive slasher who can put a decent amount of pressure on the rim. This pairs beautifully with the way he relocates along the perimeter, because not only is he finding openings as a shooter, he's creating lanes for himself to drive into and finish. For these reasons, defenses can't really put a smaller guard on him without running into some mismatch issues. But as soon as he gets a bigger wing or even a forward, those defenders will now be forced to chase him as he flies around all sorts of different screens. In addition to being a knockdown spot-up shooter, whether that's wide open or with a decent contest, he's also capable of shooting on the move. And if you look around the NBA, there aren't many movement shooters who stand at 6'8" or taller. That makes him especially dangerous off of screens, where if his man gets hit and the big isn't all the way up, he'll take and make that shot consistently. Because of the way the Nets like to use their bigs as passing and screening hubs in the middle of the floor, that means Cam is constantly coming off of handoffs. And as I mentioned, not only is he a threat to shoot on the move, he's a threat to put the ball down on a drive. Defenders are often forced to chase him over the top and run him off the line, which means that when he puts the ball down, the rest of the defense is forced to react. In addition to being a capable finisher, Cam's a legitimately good passer out of drives, so he's actively creating opportunities for the guys around him in these spots. And that passing adds another layer to his game that allows him to counter all sorts of different coverages. On this one he draws two, and the net spacing is a little funky, so there isn't an obvious read, but he still finds Trendon Watford on a pass over the top, who attacks off the catch and gets to the rim for two. Many defenses choose to just soft switch these actions because he isn't much of an isolation threat, but if the roller times up a slip, he can make that shovel pass in the pocket. So more times than not, you're gonna see his defender try to stay glued to his hip to take away the three while the rest of the defense reacts, to which he'll pretty consistently make the right reads to find the open man. He isn't some high volume playmaker who's just dicing up the defense as a passer, but he has so much utility off of screens and handoffs that under the right roster construction, he can be a legitimate offensive focal point. That roster construction would likely have to consist of an on-ball creator and a big who plays the offensive hub role in the middle of the floor. So Denver, Sacramento, OKC, I'm looking at you. He's not the type of offensive player who you can give the ball to, ask him to get a bucket, and he'll consistently break down the defense. What he is, though, is a hyper-efficient scorer who rarely ever makes mistakes. This season, he's averaging 19.5 points a game on 67% true shooting. The only other players in NBA history to reach those barometers were Steph Curry in 2018, then Kevin Durant and Nikola Jokic in 2023. If there's a team out there that's looking for a complementary piece to sharpen out the edges of their offense, they aren't gonna find a better one than Cam Johnson. As for the defensive side of the ball, I really don't view him as a needle mover in either direction. He's not quick enough to defend at the point of attack, not strong enough to match up with bigs, so while he isn't all that switchable, I do think he's fine as a man-to-man matchup against most opposing wings and forwards. Away from the ball, he isn't much of a playmaker or turnover generator, but he's sound and active as a help defender, has enough size to offer some resistance in the paint when needed, and overall won't have many lapses in judgment or breakdowns. So for a team that already has an established defensive structure, I think he'd fit right in as just another guy. He probably won't bring much to the table, but he also won't bleed any value. And when you get into those deeper rounds of the playoffs, just being able to tread water can go a very long way, especially when you consider the types of lineup constructions his skill set helps unlock. Teams often have to choose between shooting and passing or size and defense. Cam being just a fine defender at 6'8", while being the best shooter on most teams and a solid passer is really valuable. So again, he's one of the better connective pieces the NBA has to offer right now. And considering the Nets are clearly willing to deal him, literally every team that's trying to compete right now should be calling that phone. I'd expect the asking price to be 2 first-round picks, then whatever players it takes to make the salary work. OKC can easily put together the best package if they decide to go that route, as they have a bevy of first-round picks and a few tradable contracts in Isaiah Joe, Aaron Wiggins, and Kenrich Williams. It's also been reported that the Kings are actively engaged in the talks, and they too have some picks they can attach to guys like Kevin Huerter or Trey Lyles. But like I keep saying, he'd be a seamless fit on quite literally any competitive team that already has solid half-court shot creation. In the East, you've got the Cavs, the Knicks, or the Bucks. In the West, you've got the two I already mentioned, as well as the Grizzlies, the Mavs, the Nuggets, the Wolves, either of the LA teams. I'm not sure if I'd call it a sweepstakes, but I cannot wait to see what happens with Cam Johnson because he's got one of those rare, specialized skill sets that could just move the needle for a team trying to win a championship. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to drop a like, subscribe, and turn my post notifications on to be first on more content. If you're interested in my more in-depth research, make sure to check out the Hoop Venue podcast and my social media profiles. You can find those links in the description. Feel free to let me know down in the comments what you think of Cam Johnson. As always, I hope you all have a great day, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.